Thank you, everyone. Is there anyone I missed?
Okay, thanks everybody again for joining us today. Hope that your spring is going well. We've had a couple of beautiful days here in Central Illinois, but today's sort of dreary, so we'll just have to take it as it comes. So as we go through our talk today, our presentation, I'm going to hide my webcam here. If you have questions, go ahead and speak up. If you have anything that you need me to clarify, just let me know. For those of you, I know many of you have posted a sectional in the past, maybe not a whole lot of new information today, but it's always good to give you some updates on when you can expect various pieces of material from us. So as we look first at the calendar here on this slide, you can see that our date again will be on Thursday. This year, that means the sectional tournament will be on May 2nd, and our rain date is on Monday, May 6th. A couple of things you can be working on now in the pre-tournament phase of the tournament. The first thing will be to review your sectional information sheet, and Laura will be sending that. Actually, she sent those to you yesterday via email, and our hope is that you can look at those and return them to us certainly no later than the end of the day, Friday. It'd be our hope that early part of next week, before we get into the Easter break, we've got all of those posted online for our schools. And in particular, the key thing to look at there is setting the fishing times. There are some times in there right now. We just put those in there so you don't forget about them, I guess, more than anything else. The terms and conditions say you can set a minimum of 5 hours for a tournament and a maximum of 8 hours. What those hours are, you have some flexibility to determine. So what we need you to do is decide when you're going to fish at your sectional tournament. We'd like you to look over the rest of the sheet. If you notice there's something else that needs to be edited, you can let us know, but the key is to mark when you're going to have your fishing times and then send the form back to us, and we'll get it edited, and then we'll make sure we make it into a more viewable format when we post things online. Next, we have permits and your certificates of insurance. And those, along with your country financial banner, are going to be sent later this week. The permits and the certificates of insurance will be sent by email on Friday, and the banners will also go out in the mail on Friday. And we ask that you hang that banner around your launch and weigh-in area. The other thing you'll be getting via email on Friday are the handouts that you can give to the qualifiers and the alternate team from your sectional. You'll need to make copies of the qualifier document. You need to make 3 of those to give to the 3 qualifiers. Have 1 copy of the alternate document ready in the event that you have an alternate for your sectional. And you'd only have an alternate if you had at least 4 schools catch fish. But be on the lookout for those documents. The key there is to make sure the right people get them, information they need for the state finals. And then finally, I know this is always a question, I just want to keep you informed on what we've done. We've been in contact with DNR. We have shared all of your contact information with our DNR contact, and we said to our DNR contact, as you reach out to your reps, if you know somebody's going to be present at a sectional site to help with boat safety checks, could you please have that person contact the manager? As we have people reach out to us, they overlook that step and come to us and say, hey, I'm going to help out at Lake Shelbyville. Who do I got to get in touch with? We're going to redirect them back to you But that's what we've done so far. We've told DNR, here's who to contact. This person's in charge. Hope that you can make a connection for us. So I guess if you don't hear, I guess DNR is saying they're not going to have somebody there to help you. But if you need, conversely, if you need help, let me know, and I will see what I can do to make sure that somebody gets there to help in whatever capacity you need. Also thinking about one thing I probably recommend, I'm going to take a break here. One thing that we're getting a little bit of feedback, and it might be because we're on the phone. If some of you have the ability to mute yourself until you've got a question to ask, that might help other people if they're also getting some feedback. Not a huge deal, but in case somebody's having a hard time hearing, sometimes that works. Also in the pre-tournament phase, we'd suggest you review the manager's manual, and that's available online. Be comfortable with the language that's not only in the terms and conditions, but in other managerial instructions. A real key for us is the team roster sheets. And it's really important that we, well, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. For right now, remember that those team rosters need a signature on them from the school principal. I would maybe suggest, as sort of a best practice, that you maybe ask the schools to submit those before the day of your tournament. When you're reaching out to them, maybe you suggest that they send in their signed rosters, you know, the Monday of the sectional tournament. A school can still, if they do that, make a change to their roster from, let's just say you use Monday, up until the time you begin fishing. The change would still need to be on the form. It would still need to be signed by the principal. But by getting those forms in early, it might help you with your planning, knowing who's on what roster, how many boats each school is going to be bringing. The one thing we want to stress, though, is that a student can only be on one roster. So a school couldn't say that Kurt is going to fish on boat 1, but we're going to make him the alternate on boat 2 in case boat 1 doesn't qualify and boat 2 does, then Kurt can still fish at the state finals. A student can only be on one roster. So that's another reason if you get the rosters turned into you in advance, you can check that, and if you encounter any difficulties there, you could either reach out to the coach or you could call me, and I could help navigate that for you. You'll also want to think about appointing a tournament committee to handle appeals, and you'll want to find at least 3 other coaches or administrators to help you with that. You'd want to check your site conditions and let us know if you have any concerns. Make sure you've got copies of the safety check and appeals forms available. And then lastly, and probably most importantly, is make sure you've developed an emergency evacuation plan for your lake or for your body of water. Now, on the day of the tournament, make sure you've got cell phone numbers for everybody, coaches and captains. Remind schools about the importance of being on time for weigh-ins. Make sure they know what the penalty is if they're not on time. Make sure you discuss that emergency action plan. Announce if there are any off-limits areas. Remind people about any water restrictions. I think it's also important to remind schools, and you can do this in advance of the tournament, on the day of the event, no other boats can be put on the water by the competing schools. We really want to try to restrict the number of boats out there. We don't need fans or schools putting out other boats to just see how their students are doing. That's really important, we believe, and that's what the advisory committee's position is. You'd want to remind them what the process is if they want to sub somebody out, have a substitution during the day. And just remind folks if there is going to be some kind of an appeal, that it needs to be made in writing. It has to come to you as the manager prior to the end of weigh-ins. So those are some things you can do the day of the event. After the tournament, just a few reminders, do your weigh-ins, distribute your awards. The awards, if you have not received the awards, did we say the week is by the Monday of? If you haven't received your awards by April 29th, which is the Monday of sectional week, please contact our office. You should have them the week after Easter at the latest. So if you haven't received them by the 29th, let us know. Make sure you distribute the qualifier notes and the alternate notes to the right teams. You'll also be receiving, and then you can post results from the tournament online. You'll be receiving the ID and password you need to do that from Laura. That will again be coming soon, this Friday, when all the other things are sent to you. We need you to return all your roster forms to us, and we need those as soon as you can get them to us. And even if that means you got to just take a picture of them on your phone and text them to me, I've given you my cell number, and I'm going to remind you about weather here in a second. But at the very least, we need the 3 qualifying team rosters and the alternate roster so we can begin our planning, because we'll begin our planning on that Friday following your sectional. And then all the other rosters, we ask that you send those to us, because it also, one of the things we're trying to figure out as a committee is what our next phase and evolution of bass fishing is. Some of your lakes are really full of fish, or not fish, you're full of boats. You might be bordering on being too big, too many boats. And we're trying to figure out as a committee, do we need to add sectionals or do we need to add regionals to bass fishing? And having a real clear idea of how many boats are participating in our state series is crucial. So that's why we need the rosters back. And Laura wants me to remind you, the roster form, we need you to list the largest bass. We just need to know what the largest bass is in your tournament. And of course, then you can send us the Country Financial banner back as well. We take those to Carlisle and post or display those as well. And then finally, before I say thanks again for being willing to host, and I'll send you reminders as we get closer to the sectional week. When weather, bass fishing, I always say, is a little different than some of our other sports, because you guys are going to start so early in the morning. I recognize that you may have to make a really early call on whether you're going to be able to have your sectional or not on the given day. All I ask is that you stay in touch with me via cell phone, so I've got an idea, and we can make sure we're on the same wavelength in regards to canceling or postponing and moving to Monday. I'm not going to try to talk you off of canceling, but I just want to make sure that we're on the same page message-wise when it comes to postponing an event. I want to help make sure that you're saying the right things to everybody. One of the things, as manager, that you sometimes decide is we're going to go ahead. It may not be the best day to fish, but we're going to fish. And then you get out there and we have to shorten the day, and then people start to wonder if, we're going to move things to Monday even though we fished for a little while. And the terms and conditions are very clear. If you fish on whatever day you have your sectional, if you fish for 2.5 hours, you have a completed tournament in our eyes. So you may have planned for 8 hours, but you only got in 2.5. We've got a finished tournament, and we would, consider that a done tournament. And whatever the weigh-in tells us is who advances. So that can crop up sometimes, and then people who have it, not managerially, but other participants who haven't been used to our bass fishing series think, well, what's going on? And so it helps me to know what's going on so I can help you explain things to those schools who might be a little unsure of what's happening. How about any questions for me that have come up on your end of things, or something that you think I may have forgotten?
Hey, Kurt, this is Eric from from Fox Chain. I have some larger schools that usually have all the paperwork signed by an activities director. Does it have to be the principal, or can the activities director for some of these larger school districts sign off on that?
Yeah, that's a great question, Eric. I think as we got into this, I could probably look to update that form for another year. The thing that we're really getting after here is that a school administrator is acknowledging that these people are eligible. So if you've got an athletic director, an activity director, or a principal signature, I'll accept that. I would say this: if you have a concern about a signature on a form, contact me. So, my point being for you, if you got somebody, you didn't know if they were the activity director or not, and you couldn't get a hold of somebody at the school to verify that, let me know, and I can run a little interference and either give the okay or not on that kind of deal. But if you know it's a school administrator, I'm comfortable with you accepting that.
Yeah, it hasn't been a problem, but I just know in my own district, my principal doesn't off on activities. It's my activity director. So
the key is that we're getting that administrative signature on that.
Excellent.
Good question.
All right, Kurt P. Robertson from Pierce Lake Durand High School.
Yeah, hi, Pete.
In the manager's checklist, we have a situation where it says no alternate fishing from the bank. Basically, the kids that aren't in the boat at the time but are on the roster, but it's not in the manual. Are kids allowed to fish off the bank? We have not allowed kids to do that. We just want to clarify that if you can, please.
Sure. Where does it? Yeah, I can clarify it, but I also want to clean up any misleading language we have. So where are you seeing this again?
It's on page 20 in the manual, the manager's checklist. Item number 10. It says no alternate may fish from the bank, but it's not in the manual. It's on the manager's checklist.
Right. So, as manager, one, you need to determine if there are any off-limits areas. Okay, so if there are off-limits areas and that's a place where you want to tell alternates they can go and throw a pole in the water while they're waiting, you can do that. But if there's not an area like that that's been designated for people that aren't in the tournament proper, then there shouldn't be any fishing by alternates off the bank. Does that make sense or no?
Exactly what we need. Thank you very much. That's good.
Yep. Good question. So I've been recording our meeting here, and one thing I plan to do when we're done is we'll get an archived copy of it. We'll send this back out to everybody, so if you wanted to look at it or review it, you could. But I think the real key as a takeaway from today, beginning this week, you've already got your sectional information sheet. If you can get that back to us by the end of the day Friday, that would be a great thing for you to do hopefully this week. We're going to be starting to send you a bunch of other information beginning Friday, and then by the time we get to the end of the month, you should have everything you need to run another successful sectional tournament.
Hey, Kurt, Steve Silic with Bussey Reservoir here. I noticed a change in the terms and conditions, Section 8, Part A. Fishing is defined as having a lure attached to a line and a rod and a reel with a rod in the hand.
Yeah.
I'm guessing, is that in response to the request for the use of sonar bobbers by the kids?
Yes.
And does that mean that a sonar bobber is allowed to be used since it doesn't have a lure on it, in addition to them fishing with a rod and reel with a lure on it?
Right. Yes.
So we got to keep on that second line then and make sure it's a sonar bobber if they have two lines out. So say the question again, Steve. So does that mean that technically they're allowed to have two lines out on the water, assuming one of them is the sonar bobber.
Well, I wouldn't, okay, yes. Using your vernacular, yes, I'll agree to that. I wouldn't, and I think the committee took the position that a sonar bobber, excuse me. That's a lot of syllables for me at 10:30 on a Wednesday morning, but they took the position that that's not really considered a line. If it has a lure on it, now we've got a problem. But putting that in the water, I think what the committee also decided is that it's not the most effective way to track fish, and so there's not an advantage being gained by using that.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
No, that's a good question, and the committee looked at a lot of things to try and update our terms and conditions to make them just a little more current. Well, thank you, everybody. Hearing no more questions, thank you for your time today. As always, this is good just to have everybody together in this kind of setting, but if you have other questions at any point in time, please feel free to get a hold of Laura or I. We want to make this the best experience that it can be for you. We appreciate your help, and we're hoping we're going to have a beautiful day on May 2nd. So thanks again, and have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Good day.